What's up? Will here with Rennthusiast, my YouTube channel about Porsche ownership, and I am coming to you from the inside of my 2017 Porsche 911 Carrera S, the 991.2. This video here is going to be a cautionary tale for any of you out there who are in the hobby and constantly looking for your next experience and who maybe like me can't really stay satisfied with what they have. Before I get into the details of what exactly I mean, I'll say this. My experience with Porsche, with the brand, with owning and buying, experiencing, selling, all of these different cars I've been fortunate enough to be able to experience. Like, this has been a journey. When I say that, what I mean is I have bought cars and really loved them and then kind of fell out of love and decided to move them along, and then sometimes regretted it, sometimes felt really good about it. But for me, each car, each decision I make shapes the next decision I make. And so sometimes, and I've done this on the channel quite a bit, I'll make a decision, I'll buy a car, I'll change my mind, and sometimes I'll take a little heat from you guys. I don't know, I think in life, you know, we just gotta kind of try things out and see what we like and move on. I know some of you guys out there are like long-term hold owners, so you buy a 911 and you hang on to it for 30 years. That's just not me. A little bit of background here. I owned this 991.2 for several months about a year ago, and I sold the car, which is just stupendous, by the way. This is a stupendous automobile. I sold this car to a gentleman local to me about a year ago because I had the opportunity to buy a 992 Carrera T custom from Porsche. So I bought the car, I featured that car on this channel. I've talked about that car ad nauseum. I'll link all my videos at the end of this one. Punchline on all of that is I bought the 992, really wasn't for me, and I started to miss this 991.2 that I had sold. I was able to buy this car back from the gentleman who I sold it to. And really, this was kind of like the one that almost got away. I've learned from my 992 experience that, you know, the latest and greatest isn't necessarily the best. I know there are those of you out there, you've commented on a lot of my videos and on my Facebook brand page, how much you love the 992, and I respect that. And I think the 992 has great technology on it. I just found that the latest and greatest wasn't really for me. So now let me take you through why I am so thrilled to have this back in the garage. And at the end of the video, if you're somebody who is looking at 991.2s, or if you own one, I'm going to share with you what I've done with this one to kind of enhance it and make it even better than it is in its natural state. Before I get into it though, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Porsche content is what I do. The first reason that I love having this car back in my garage is that I love that this 991.2 has an element of simplicity to it in that, you know, it still has the physical gauges. The head unit is modernish, but it's not like the 992 where it really takes up a whole lot of the dash. This particular spec is what I'll call a driver spec. So it's got a couple of the cool features on it, right? Like Sport Chrono and Sport Exhaust and the manual, but it doesn't have a lot of the other stuff on it. And when I owned the car before, I was complaining that, hey, I want this to be fancier. Well, I stepped into the latest and greatest and realized that I had something, you know, at the time in this 991.2 that is really actually a treasure. So that was kind of the first lesson I learned, and really the number one reason that I'm so thrilled to have this back. I feel very fortunate I was able to get it. Another thing that I really love about this 991.2 is that it is the S trim. Now, some of you guys out there are going to be like, duh, you're Captain Obvious here. So the 992 I had was the Carrera T, which means that it had the base Carrera motor, the 3-liter flat 6, has smaller turbos on it and a different tune than this S. And when I sold the S to get into the T, I really kind of underestimated the difference in power and fun factor that would exist between the T and the S. This 991.2, if you're looking at getting one, I would strongly recommend going for the S. Now, in fairness, I have not experienced the 991.2 Carrera T. I know that a lot of guys out there love theirs. Could be that it's awesome in its own right. I don't talk on this channel about cars that I haven't personally experienced. I just don't think that's authentic. Anyway, S trim, do it if you're thinking about it. I'm stoked to have the Carrera S. Something else that I really enjoy about this particular car is the understated exterior color. It's a simple black. When I owned the car before, I kind of felt like it wasn't very exciting color-wise, and I really had the itch to get into something very bright and fun and interesting and unique, which was why I spec'd my T in shark blue. Experienced that was fun, that was awesome, but something about this S is kind of cool, stealthy, in that it's under the radar in a way. I mean, it's still a 911, you still get the looks. It's a gorgeous car, but with this black color, it's a little less conspicuous. Something else that I am very excited about with this car is that it does not have rear axle steering. Now, I know that there are viewers out there that are sick and tired of hearing me complain about the 992 Carrera T that I own. That car did have RAS. I go into detail in my wrap-up video on that Carrera T about rear axle steering and why I ended up thinking it's not that great. I won't go into that here, but I just love the handling characteristics of this 991.2. Front end floats. It feels like the chassis is just a little bit more compliant, and overall it feels more 911 than a car that has rear axle steering. Now, I know that some of you guys out there really enjoy your RAS car. I think that's great. That's the great thing about Porsche, is there's something for everyone, but I just feel very fortunate that I have this 991.2 without RAS in this manual, in this spec. It feels very, very driver focused. Something else that I felt very fortunate to be able to say about this car when I bought it back is that it's a known. So when I owned it before, I had the water pump replaced under warranty. I had the 40,000 miles service done. I put a fair number of miles on the car and shook it down, so I knew that, you know, the car was fairly bulletproof. I mean, no problems emerged. And so when I was able to buy this car back from the gentleman I sold it to, he only put like 1,000 miles on it. And so I figured how much damage could have been done in 1,000 miles. When I bought this back, you know, you didn't have to go through that mystery experience that you often have to go through when you buy a car. Maybe that's different for you than it has been for me, but I always kind of hold my breath whenever I buy a new Porsche, whether it's classic, you know, air-cooled stuff or newer stuff, just because, like, you don't know until you know. And so with this car, felt like it was a familiar old friend coming back in the garage, and one that is reliable. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about maybe a couple of silly, nerdy things that I like about this 991.2 compared to the 992. And this is going to be really kind of, you know, you're welcome to poke fun of me if you'd like. So the first thing, or something that does stand out in my mind, are the door handles, the exterior door handles. I love that they protrude from the body, that they're physical. When you grab them on the 992, you get kind of close to it. It's flush to the door handle's flush to the body. When you put your fingers underneath it, it kind of pops out from the car. I mean, mine never had any problems, and they're certainly functional, and it is interesting and unique. But in my view, it was kind of like, man, you know, how long until this breaks? And I don't know, there's just something about these door handles, as silly as that is, that I just really prefer. Something else that is, I don't know, this is going to be crazy to you, but the spoiler action on this car is very entertaining. And when I say that, in the rear view mirror, you can see it going up and down and up and down, and it just seems like it, I mean, it's all intentional. It's all operating as expected, as it should. It provides a little more entertainment because you can see it going up and down. With the 992, you didn't see it as often. And so I don't know, I think that's super cool. Something else I love about the 991.2 is that there is zero wind buffeting with the sunroof open and with the windows down. That was not the case with the 992. Again, for those of you out there sick of hearing me complain about it, I'm not trying to complain about the 992. I just can't discuss my experience with this car without comparing it to that one. The lack of buffeting is awesome. And then finally, and I've touched on this many times in talking about this car on video, but I love the exhaust note on this car. In spite of being the same motor as the T, basically, it just has a much better exhaust note. Don't know why that is, but it is. If you're somebody who is thinking about buying a 991.2 Carrera, you should buy an S. or if you're an owner and you're looking to get more out of it, I'll tell you about the 5 things that I've done to this car just to kind of make it a little bit better. So the first thing I did as soon as I bought this car back is I put a new set of Pilot Sport 4S's, and like, it was a game changer. The car had the Pirelli tires on it, which is one thing, just like they don't perform well. They slip and slide in the cold and the wet, but I didn't realize like how dry and how loud they were and how uncomfortable the ride was as a result of those tires being on there. So when I put these brand new tires on here, game changer. It was freaking awesome. The next thing I did to kind of make this better is I installed a permanent radar detector, like a blend mount, under the rear view mirror. Gets the wiring off the dash and it just kind of cleans it up, and it's an additional expense. It's not too expensive, but I don't usually do that with my cars because I'm like thinking, hey, I'm gonna sell it, like why would I go to that expense? I also, and this is huge, I also put the factory short shift kit on this car. I'll link that down in the description. It is a game changer, man. I don't know why I didn't do this the last time I owned it. This shifter is as good as the one on the 992 Carrera T. It's as good as the one on my old 981 GT4. It's as good as the one on my 981 Spider. So I would strongly recommend putting one of these short shifter kits on your 991.2 if you end up buying one, or if you currently own one and you're not running this kit. It is awesome. All right, the next thing I'm doing to this particular car that's not necessarily universal, but I'm going to be redoing the PPF on it. The PPF on the front end, it's on the 2 fenders, and on the hood and on the bumper is, I believe, original of the car, and you can see that it's failing. It's just fading out. It's got scratches all over it, so I'm going to replace that. Finally, if you really want to get the most out of your ownership of the 991.2, you can do what I did. I bought a 3-year, 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper extended warranty on the car. You are probably going to say that I will not hang on to this car for 3 years, and you know, there's a strong likelihood that you're correct. But the nice thing about the warranty is that it can be prorated and refunded back to you. So now, like, I'm rolling in this car worry-free. Again, I don't want to jinx myself, knock on wood. I feel like I don't need to worry as much as perhaps I have to worry, worrying being a relative term. I don't feel like I have expensive repairs hanging out there that could or could not happen. So I don't know if you can take something away from this video. I think really kind of the bottom line on it is that all that glitters isn't gold. Be careful about jumping out of something before you really think through, you know, what it gives you, and maybe some things you might overlook that you'll regret later letting go of. And so for me, with this 991.2 Carrera S, I really feel like I dodged a bullet. I do feel so fortunate I was able to order the T and experience it and feature it on the channel. And I never thought that in my life I'd be able to custom order a 911. And so for those of you out there who have said that I've been negative about that car, I'm sorry that that's been the case. I haven't really meant to be. It's just that I've been very straight up with you about my experience. But overall, I mean, Porsche is a fantastic brand. The offerings are all so fun, but I think when it comes to like a modern 911 that I want a daily, I think I'm just gonna stick to this one. Here's some cards to my Carrera T videos. Something else I do want to close with is that a friend and I will be launching a podcast called Rennthusiast Radio, Suburban Outlaws Talking Porsche. So if you're a podcast person, stay tuned to the channel. I'll be telling you how you can learn more about that podcast. Hope to see you next time.